The movement assists: reposition, draw back, shove, smite, and swap. A set of skills that, in the hands of an experienced Fire Emblem Heroes player, prove invaluable tools for getting expeditiously into and out of situations. But those are human hands. Can this game's AI be trusted to handle movement assists without getting everything horribly wrong? If you want the short answer, it is, no. Okay, how about a longer answer? For that, I would tell you, no. With some exceptions. What are the exceptions? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, let's explain what the AI actually does with movement assists and, well, why it's bad. Okay, so you might use a movement assist to send a character in or to pull a character out. Phase AI doesn't do in, but it does do out, and it calculates which way to go out by minimizing threat. What's threat? Simply put, it's the number of enemy units that can attack a specific tile. Example, here's an enemy, here's another enemy. The tiles in the middle that both of them can attack, those have a threat of 2, because 2 units can hit them. The rest of the tiles that are in range, they have a threat of 1, because 1 unit can hit them. And all the other squares on the map have 0 threat. A unit will use their movement assist to move another unit from 2 threat to 1 threat, or from 2 threat to 0 threat, or from 1 threat to 0 threat. Basically any option they have to make that number go down. Conversely, if the only options available make the threat on the target stay the same or go up, a unit with a movement assist will just ignore it and move normally instead. And note that it only cares about threat on the target, not the unit actually using the assist itself, which is why assists like swap still work. So long as you're swapping an ally out of threat, the AI does not care that you're swapping yourself into threat. So that's what the AI does, but when does it do it? A lot of assists, such as rallies and heals and dances, can happen before or after combat, but movement assists like this can almost always only happen after combat. That is, if there's any units that can attack, your movement assist doer is just going to wait it out until they've done fighting before it tries anything. And if you look at the priority list over here for post-combat assists, and I've simplified it a lot to remove a bunch of weird edge cases, because if I covered every weird edge case rather than just for ones that are relevant to movement assists, I would be here for hours. Well, anyway, movement assists are right at the bottom, meaning that if there are any dancers that can dance, if there are any healers that can heal, if there are any ralliers that actually want to rally someone, units with movement assists are going to wait until all that is finished too, and then they'll use their assist. While that's good to know, it's not especially relevant to our point I'm going to make, but what is relevant is that on top of this, if a unit with a movement assist has literally anything better to do, they'll do that instead. If there's a unit they can attack, there is no 5 damage rule. They will actually just attack, because attacking is way more important to them than just shuffling your units about, even if that attack is totally pointless. 0 damage, they die, who cares, right? This will be on the test later, so write that one down. And obviously they can't rally or dance because they've got a movement assist equipped, not a rally assist or a dance assist. But what about units that can heal and move? Because, you know, they made skills that are a healing assist and a movement assist glued together. Well, joke is on you. The AI does not think that those are movement assists, and it won't ever use them like movement assists. They'll only be used to heal. And one final thing, only units that are grayed out because they already used their action are valid targets for movement assist. Unlike you, the AI sees no reason to assist a unit off of a space when it can walk off that space with its own darn legs. Or wings. Got that? Good. Now let's move on. Why are they bad? Or, let me pretend my opinions are subjective for a moment. Why do I think they're bad? It's because they're bad. Okay, but for real though, let's talk about some actual problems. Problem 1. Give the AI a movement assist and it will move your units away from the enemy. You follow, right? The tiles that have less threat are a greater distance from the enemy than the tiles that have more threat. Normally you want your team to go this way, but with movement assists they'll try and go that way. And okay, maybe you want your team to use a hit and run style strategy, but the AI does not know what those words mean. And on top of that, you've got to remember that the other team also has movement assists, probably, and they're controlled by a human. Human smart, AI not smart. So it's very unlikely that the AI will actually be able to strategically pull your units far enough out of range to actually be safe from where a human player can reach. And in the meantime, by running away from them, your units are giving your human opponent a whole bunch of free space to hit and run you, or hide their supports away, or do whatever other nonsense it is that they're doing back there. But, okay, I could believe that maybe you've found a way to make it work, or maybe you just see a lot of situations where the AI running away might actually be the right play. But, you know, I called this problem 1, which would somewhat appear to imply the existence of a problem 2. Problem 2! The AI splits your units. Check back to your notes and recall that if a unit with a movement assist has anything better to do, it does that instead. Now let's look at a situation. Our poor Cav unit has gone a bit ham here, trying to take on the whole enemy team, and meanwhile there's also like a dancer or something hanging out at the other end of the map. Okay, imagine you are the AI, and you want to assist this Cav unit. Well, there's a problem. If you want to pull them back away from the enemy, you've got to be standing in a spot where you can't attack any enemy units. If you're a melee unit, depending on your movement range, there will be literally only one tile you could be standing on to achieve that, where you can assist this unit and you can't attack any enemies. So you better hope that you were already standing there, or else they're stranded. If you're a ranged unit, as the AI, you literally cannot help them, because every tile next to them that you can assist from is a tile you can also attack from. On the other hand, this dancer, you try and assist them, there's no such problem. They're way away from anything better that could be distracting you. Now, I mean, this is a bit of an extreme example, but to put it more generally, it's way easier with your units who have movement assists to use them instead of attacking if they are far away from the enemy and the units they're trying to assist are also far away from the enemy. Speaking from experience, what you often see is units already at the back of your team getting pulled further back, leaving units that are at the front stranded out of range of supports on future turns. So, to summarize, bad. But I'm sure you're getting a bit fed up of all this bad right about now, though, so it's good news time. I told you there would be exceptions, and there are. There are a handful of exceptions. I'll attempt to cover them all real quick, but buckle yourselves in, because when I say a handful, I do have very big hands. Oh, and by the way, I'll be covering these in order, roughly, starting from weird and probably entirely useless, and escalating to, whoa Nelly, that's actually kinda good. First, a quirk to take note of. Here's a unit with a ranged weapon and an assist. They're gonna pull Regan out of the way because, yeah, that makes sense. Same thing happens when Regan is under threat from this other guy. Now here's a unit with a melee weapon and the same assist. They're gonna pull Regan out of the... Huh? Well, something weird happened there, but when Regan is under threat from this ranged unit, they assist as normal. 2 last tests move Regan up 1 so they're under threat from both units, and look, there's the weird thing again. Move Regan up 1 on the other side, normal assist again. If you're wondering what's going on, this is body blocking. If a melee unit with a movement assist can move to stand in the way and thus completely block a melee enemy from hitting their assist target, they will do that instead of assisting. Completely is an important word here, which is why it doesn't happen on this side, because wherever you try and stand to block Eliwood, he can just go around you. And only units that can assist will do this. If a unit has no assist, they won't body block. And if a unit has an assist but can't use it for whatever reason, well, just watch. Second, weird little bonus quirk. Even though we literally just showed that the AI will body block instead of a movement assist, enemy threat ranges actually completely ignore body blocks. I'm sure you all know about the classic baby jail, so I made a baby jail of my own, with Regan again here serving as our volunteer. But even though our prison is inescapable, the prisoner is still threatening tiles all the way down here, which we can prove because the AI will still use a movement assist to get our hapless dancer out of harm's way, even though there was never any danger to begin with. Now into the moderately useful zone. If you don't want your units to use movement assists on auto battle, guess what? There's a setting that just turns them off. Now there's no downsides to using them anymore. There's no upsides either. It's a net neutral, but still, no downsides. This does only apply to auto battle, so on, for example, Aether raids, you'll have to solve your own problems still. Fair is fair, I guess. Now, what's this skill I found in my manuals? That's right, it's Pivot. Pivot fans rejoice. I haven't forgotten about it. Pivot may be a movement assist, but it's an exception because unlike all the other movement assists, it doesn't move any other unit, only yourself. As a result, the AI treats Pivot completely differently from how it would treat every other movement skill, and this one is actually a win for the Pivot enjoyers because the AI uses Pivot in, well, more or less the same way it uses normal movement, to get closer to where it wants to be. If a unit is just moving around and it can get to a better tile, that is a tile that is closer to the unit it's trying to kill, plus or minus a bunch of those zany conditions that we're not about to get into. If it can get to a better tile using Pivot than without using Pivot, it will pivot. Now, of course, Pivot isn't still unilaterally good. It has some downsides, but at least the downsides of Pivot are totally different downsides to every other movement assist. Hey, next question. How do you feel about a little AI manipulation? It's time to fiddle with the movement list. There's no enemies in range and there's no valid assists for your team to use, so now they're just wandering about. But what order do they move in? Interestingly enough, well, first things first, this is decided at the start of the turn, and here's how. It's our good old favourite, a list of tiebreakers. First off is some mystery condition. We'll skip that and come back to it. Any ties from the mystery condition are decided by attack type. Melee units move before ranged, move before weaponless units. Any ties that still exist are solved by distance from the enemy. If you were closer to the enemy at the start of the turn, you get to move first, and any ties that still exist are decided by slot order. You got that? Now, let's open up our mystery box. Well, it turns out that the most important decider for who gets to move first in this kind of nothing better to do condition is whether they have an assist or not. Units without assist will move before units with assists. This, of all the tangled little parts of Phase AI, this one actually makes sense. If you've got a dancer and some other unit, neither of them have anything worthwhile to do with their lives, and some other unit moves first, maybe now the dancer will actually have a unit they'll be able to dance. Great! Whereas make the dancer moves first and they've just wasted that dance. In any case, this applies to any assist. So if, for whatever reason, you want one of your units to move after your units without assists, well, now you have a way of setting that up. It's a very specific situation, and I can't really tell you why you'd want to do this, but if you do, you can. Now, though, we are into the wowee big useful zone, because here are two very powerful movement assists. Lucina's Future Vision and Chrom's To Change Fate. You've got to put the exclamation mark on that. Future Vision may be one of the best YouTube channels out there for people who enjoy Lucina, but it's also a movement assist, with a twist. The twist being that it gives you an extra action. As we've already established, movement assists are kinda bad, but conversely, extra actions, very good. And, you know, we run dancers for a reason. To Change Fate is also basically the same. Honestly, I'd say that both of these skills are good enough, but you should probably just slap them on, even if you're leaving your precious units in the fumble-prone hands of the AI. But what is important to remember is that the AI will treat these like any other movement assist. They'll get used if and only if there is nothing better to do, and they can reduce someone's threat. Is this useful information for you? Well, yeah? Think about it. If you're placing these units somewhere, maybe you can come up with some idea of where threat ranges might be, and position them so that their skills actually get used. I don't know, give it a shot. On the other hand, if you're playing against them, now maybe you can put your units places so that their threat ranges cause the skills not to be used. Aha! I'm not actually smart enough to have any footage prepared for this, but I guarantee you it is possible, and I trust that you can figure out how to do it. Good luck. But, you know, those were fancy, special movement assists. For the finale, I want to show you the AI making itself genuinely useful with just plain old, regular, bog standard movement assists. Behold and weep, the rare and very special edge case, the pre-combat movement assist. Well, what's going on here? I ask. You take a quick look at this situation. Here's a friendly unit, here's an enemy unit. The friendly unit is threatening the enemy unit, but it can't actually attack because look, someone's taken their spot. And lastly, we have another friendly unit here with a movement assist. What you think the AI will do? I'll give you a moment to come up with your answer. And let's see if you're right. In an incredibly big-brained move by Fae AI standards at least, it frees up the spot to let the attack happen, and this is actually standard AI behavior. If there are no units that can attack, but they're in range to attack, and the only reason that they can't attack is because their space is already taken, and on top of that, that space can be emptied using a movement assist, well, guess what? The AI does the sensible thing and empties the space to allow the attack to happen. As such, this is the number one reason why I'd suggest possibly thinking about giving movement assists to your AI units. If you have a team that tends to clog up against tanks so that not every single unit gets to attack, a well-placed movement assist can let you sneak one or two more hits in there, and that could be the difference between winning and losing. So, good job, movement assists. In the end, you weren't all bad. Well, except for Swap. Swap can't actually do this. It can't free up space, so Swap is still trash. To conclude. Where do I mean conclude? I have no idea how to summarize what I've just said. I covered like 12 things, buddy, and none of them make any sense. If you think I can trim all of that down to a couple of witty and succinct sentences, then you think wrong. Look, if there's anything that you didn't get, then I suggest watching the entire video again until you understand. Okay, that was a joke, but if you really have any further questions or you need anything else explained, or if there's some other video you'd like to see me make next, please tell me in the comments. On top of that, I would like to thank Mia's AI Guide, which is a pretty much comprehensive guide as far as Fire Emblem Heroes AI goes. There's a link to that down in the description, and maybe also floating around somewhere else if you want a reference to learn this kind of thing yourself. And of course, I'm talking to you on YouTube right now, so I am contractually obligated to say yada yada, please subscribe, yada yada, like the video. Look, here are some numbers, make them go up. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all again in the next one, hopefully.